Since 2000, family health care has gone up 90%.
Wow.
College in the last 4 years has gone up 44%. Yes. Also housing. These are the things, you know, these are the bills that middle-class people have. Their wages have been flat, and the costs have gone through the roof. No wonder that they have taken on $5.2 trillion in debt. And the biggest lie, and my friend, I love him, P.J. O'Rourke says it all the time, my wealth doesn't make you poorer. Yes, it does. This is, you know, you wonder where all this money went. In 1980, the top 1% had 8% of the economic pie, and now they have 23%. This is where the money goes.
Like South America in the old days.
CEOs 30 years ago made 30 times what the average worker made. Now they make 344 times.
Because that's all you ever hear about in this country is our differences. That's all the media and the politicians are ever talking about, the things that separate us, things that make us different from one another. That's the way the ruling class operates in any society. They try to divide the rest of the people. They keep the lower and the middle classes fighting with each other so that they, the rich, can run off with all the fucking money. Fairly simple thing, happens to work. You know, anything different, that's what they're going to talk about. Race, religion, ethnic and national background, jobs, income, education, social status, sexuality, anything you can do, keep us fighting with each other so that they can keep going to the bank. You know how I describe the economic and social classes in this country? The upper class keeps all of the money, pays none of the taxes. The middle class pays all of the taxes, does all of the work. The poor are there just to scare the shit out of the middle class. Keep them showing up at those jobs.
The middle class is screwed.
I'll tell you right now, really quickly, in 1910, Senator Aldrich on his private train brought a bunch of billionaire bankers, the Morgans, all these different people, Warburgs, down to this place called Jekyll Island off the coast of Georgia, and they figured out a way to create the Federal Reserve, because central banks were looked down upon by the people, and they caused a lot of problems. By creating the Federal Reserve, they convinced the Congress and the people that the Federal Reserve is a government arm. It's not. They borrow money from private banks. We're owned by banks, and you can't alter that. And that's the scam. It's not billions of dollars that banks control. It's trillions. You don't mess with the banks.
The corporate influence in the government, promoting policies that reinforce the interests of the well-to-do with the wealth hemorrhaged at the top. And even in talking about the middle class, most middle-class folk come out of families that were poor. Anytime you talk about the middle class in America, you need to talk about poor people, working poor, working people who are trying to make it into a life.
Elizabeth Warren, our friend who runs the TARP fund, she had an article in the Washington Post yesterday. She was talking about what's happening to the middle class. The Center for American Progress, they also put out a report this week. Back in the 50s, it only took dad to work. Mom could stay home. Okay. Then mom in the 70s went to work. You needed two people to work to make ends meet. And then that wasn't enough, and we had to basically have this big scam that our houses were worth more than they were so we could take money out. People took on 2 jobs. And after that, then we credit card debt. And she was saying, we're out of tricks.
She's right.
Now, why has this progression moved from the 1950s, where people, middle-class people, had money and could live, to the point now where they can't?
Because you had trade unions and you had less greedy corporate elites and bankers who recognized that if they made profits, they had to share it with their workers. With greed run amok now, you got a middle class shrinking, and you got an economic team in place now that still views jobs as an afterthought. They talk about the end of recession, recovery. For who? Bankers? Wall Street?
They had a vision of a way we could have no enemies ever again, if you're interested in this. Anybody interested in hearing this? It's kind of an interesting theory, and all we have to do is make one decisive act, and we can rid the world of all our enemies at once. Here's what we do. You know all that money we spend on nuclear weapons and defense every year? Trillions of dollars. Instead, if we spent that money feeding and clothing the poor of the world, which it would pay for many times over, not one human being excluded, not one, we could as one race explore outer space together in peace forever. Thank you very much.